The Cold Country Podcast is finally back in 2026. With college basketball season in full swing, the college football playoff wrapped up, and WVU Football getting a complete revamp, what are our thoughts? Find out in this episode of the Cold Country Podcast.
You are now entering Cold Country.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Cold Country Podcast, where we discuss everything WVU sports. I'm your host, Ian McIntyre. Joining me, as always, I got Tyler Cobb with me. Tyler, it's 2026. We haven't recorded since Christmas. How's life been?
I know it feels like we have not got in front of the cameras for a long time. It's been a pretty good start to the year so far, getting back into the groove of things. Glad to be back talking to the boys on camera about some football and basketball.
Heck yeah, I feel the same way. It does feel good to be back on camera, putting some work in on YouTube and putting our content out there. Talk about it all the time. We do it for the love of the game. And we took a little bit of a break over the holidays. Took a while to get back rolling. Life happened. Huge snowstorm outside, too. Just came over the weekend, and I'm sore from shoveling snow. I don't know about you, but it's got everybody inside. Perfect time to watch some content on some WVU sports, honestly. So perfect time to be putting this out there again. A lot of stuff has happened in college sports in general, especially college football. Quickly mention, shout out Indiana, shout out Morgantown native Kurt Signetti for winning a national championship. Huge accomplishment for Indiana. Went from, historically the losingest program in college football history. They go 3-9 2 years ago. They turn around and win the national championship, undefeated season. Incredible season for them. I'm really happy for Signetti, especially. Mendoza projected to be first overall pick NFL draft. Probably one of the best stories in sports in general. That's what I was gonna say.
I was gonna say greatest sports story of all time? Question mark.
It's up there. I saw someone's list that had them at like number 2. I honestly forget what their number 1 was, but it has to be up there. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying that it was, like, especially for college sports. Like, if you want to take pro sports into consideration, there could be something different, but college sports especially, it has to be the best turnaround ever. One of the best turnarounds ever in sports in general, dude.
I was gonna say I think the number 1 on a couple of those lists have been the Miracle on Ice, so I don't know if it goes above Miracle on Ice. It's pretty daggone close. The only other thing that I can think in terms of college athletics was I cannot remember for the life of me. Was it UMBC that had that crazy March Madness run? There was a mid-major that made it all the way to the Final Four.
I can't remember if it was UMBC or not. I'd have to look it up. But there have been plenty of teams that are making runs in March Madness. Florida Atlantic getting to the Final Four, San Diego State getting there. That was like one of the most interesting years of March Madness ever, and that's why I love how perfect it is, how perfectly imperfect March Madness is. It gives us a lot of room for stories like that.
Loyola Chicago in 2018. That's who I was thinking about.
Okay.
That's who I was thinking about with Sister Jean.
Rip Sister Jean.
Rest in peace, Sister Jean.
But, yeah, great story for them, too. And we all know Loyola Chicago because of that now. So they're up there, exactly. 100%.
And now Kurt Signetti and the Who's.
Have you seen, when he said in his press conference, "Google me, I win"? If you Google Kurt Signetti, it says,
it comes
won.
up. He won, yeah. that has got to be, even if it's not the greatest sports story of all time, that's got to be coldest moment of all time. Like 2 years, the second you get to Indiana, I win, Google me. And his first 2 years there, he is a combined 27-2. Including an undefeated season with a national championship. I mean, that's got to be coldest sports moment of all time, right?
In 2 years, he's lost twice. He's lost twice in 2 years.
And one of those losses was to the eventual national champion, and the other loss was to a team that played the eventual national champion in the national championship. It was Notre Dame and Ohio State last year.
2 best losses possible.
That's a heck of a coaching record.
Heck of a resume, man. Yeah, I don't know. Just at a loss for words. Congrats to Indiana. Their fans have been waiting for something like that for a long time, and they deserve it. Now it's our turn.
I was gonna say, I feel like we deserve it a little bit. Maybe not as much as Indiana. They've been through a rough history of football, but can we get some love?
Yeah, like you heard Signetti at the end of the game. He's like, "We just won a national championship at Indiana University. It can be done." So if Indiana can do it, we can do it. We are on the short list of it is possible.
It does open the door. I will say Indiana, despite being a historically terrible program, is set up a little bit better simply because they have more donors, more money to fill the pockets. Essentially, I mean, when you have Mark Cuban backing you, it's kind
Huge
of hard.
alumni base at Indiana.
Yeah, huge alumni base, but I feel like it's still possible, even if it's 1%. Nobody 20 years ago would have ever predicted Indiana going 16-0 and winning a national championship. So why not West Virginia?
Exactly. The only thing we can do here now with Indiana is still root on the basketball team's downfall, which we will continue to do.
Which I believe we still have a better record than them through January.
So, yeah, that's a perfect way to segment to our basketball. I mean, we'll just hit on them briefly before we go over some football stuff. You know, our main topics, a lot's been happening since we last recorded. But go ahead and hop on the basketball train real quick. We started conference play since the last time we recorded. I can't remember if last episode we talked about the Ohio State loss and, you know, kind of how weird it was going off vibes entering conference play that we would have to deal with potentially only winning like 4 or 5 conference games. But, we beat Mississippi Valley State, take care of business in that game. We opened conference play with Iowa State on the road and get beat by 21 points. So scoreboard didn't look that bad. Game wasn't inspiring, but then again, at the time, I think they were number 2. So you're playing the number 2 team in the country at the time. It is what it is. It's on the road. Take the loss and move on. Come back home and beat Cincinnati in a very close game. I don't think it should have been close. We let up a little bit in the second half, but we still pulled out the W. Take care of business against Cincinnati. We go and host Kansas 4 days later and get the dub there. I actually didn't watch that game. I was listening on the radio to Tony Caridi, which I'm so happy to have Tony Caridi as an announcer. Like,
he's one of the best in the business.
He is 100%. I've listened to like a couple other schools dedicated sportscasters, and Tony is just on a different level, dude. He made the game for me. I was listening on the radio in the car driving to Pennsylvania, and he made the game for me. On or off, hitting the logo 3. Insane moment. We win that game. Really good quad 1 win for us, potentially looking into the tournament.
Still our only quad 1 win, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing. So then after that, 3 days later, we go on the road and play Houston, and we get beat by 29. Again, another one of those Iowa State situations. It is what it is. Come back home and beat Colorado by 11. Go on the road and beat Arizona State by 12. That was a good win for us because it was our first win of the season away from home. So that was a big one to pick up, especially in conference. And just on Saturday, we're recording this on Monday. Just this past Saturday, we get beat by Arizona by 35. So that was a little bit of a questionable loss, in my opinion. You're supposed to lose to the number 1 team in the country, but I would have liked to have seen us compete a little bit better. We have a tendency as a basketball team to come out of the gates just cold. Like we can't shoot very well when the game first starts, and it's very easy for us to slip into a 10, 15-point hole. And that makes it really hard to climb out of when you're talking about playing the best teams in the country, like Arizona, Iowa State, Kansas. And Big 12 is just the best basketball conference. Big 12 is loaded.
I saw something on Twitter today. Big 12 basketball is what SEC football think they are. Big 12 basketball, top to bottom, is an unreal basketball conference. It is what SEC fans think the SEC is. I'm not saying the SEC is not tough in football. It is. It is still probably one of – it's either the best or second best, just behind the Big 10. It is an extremely tough conference, but Big 12 top to bottom is insane. And as you were mentioning, you look at those losses to Iowa State, Houston, Arizona, they look bad on paper. I understand they look bad on paper, but I'm going to look at this with a half glass full. One, you're 12-0 at home. You've not lost on your home court yet, okay? And you've got prime opportunity to maintain that standard in the next two games as you get Kansas State at home tomorrow, or the day you guys are seeing this because we'll put it up tomorrow, and you get Baylor this Saturday, both at home. Those are two games that are absolutely winnable. So that's positive number one. Number two, your only conference losses are to 3 top 10 teams on the road. That's it. You
Yep.
are 4-3 in conference play. The only 3 losses are to 3 teams that will make and play well in the tournament. So, as bad as some of those losses look, and I wanted to talk about the Arizona one specifically because I was listening to the Ear Sports show this morning with Mike Sazza and Chris Anderson. They read out the recruiting profiles for all of the players that Arizona had, not even just the starters, like the starters into the bench guys. And every single one of them were either 4-star or 5-star. And there were multiple guys that were from had played professionally overseas at one point or another. And so, yes, 35 points on paper looks bad, but West Virginia is not the only team that Arizona is doing this to. Arizona is beating teams by an average of 20 points. That's insane. There's a reason they're the number one team in the country. So, yes, it looked rough, but don't put too much stock into losing to the best team in the country on the road.
Right. Yeah. One thing, like the guy that I noticed the most for Arizona that was just killing like Obioha in the center was Krivos, the guy they have from Lithuania. He is a bona fide first round NBA draft pick. And he showed it against us. He's a baller. And it's not just him. Their roster's kind of loaded. Like you said, 4 stars or 5 stars in the starting lineup clear through. So it is what it is. Your 3 conference losses, like you said, against top 10 teams in the country. And I kind of figured they were going to be losses. Could we have competed better? Yes. But at the end of the day, we know we're a good ball team. And like you said, coming up, we have Kansas State. We're hosting Kansas State tomorrow as of recording. Winnable game. And then we host Baylor on Saturday. So those are 2 teams that you can get back on track and get ready to head on the road to play Cincinnati next, which is also very winnable. We could pick up our second road win of the season, which, again, we were talking about Kansas being quad 1, super important looking into the tournament. And it's going to be important to look at road wins as well. So if you can pick one up against Cincinnati and host Texas Tech, they're another tough team. They're number 11 right now. So that's going to be a tough game. And then you go on the road, play UCF, play Utah. It gets a little easier from there. We do host BYU before the end of the year. So that's going to be another team to look out for. Texas Tech and BYU coming up on the schedule. Obviously, all the players have those highlighted. They're going to be super important games. And hopefully, if we can get close to a 500 record, or obviously we want to stay above 500 in conference, but if we can hover around there, get 17, 18 wins, 19 wins, we could be in conversations for the tournament in Hodges' first year.
Well, I'm looking at it. If you can find a way to go 4-2 at home, you've got 6 remaining home games: Kansas State, Baylor, Texas Tech, Utah, BYU, and UCF. If you can find a way to win the Kansas State game, Baylor game, Utah, and UCF, you're probably going to drop BYU and Texas Tech, which is understandable. They're both top 15 teams in the country. Texas Tech just beat Houston. And okay, never mind. I was going to say, I thought Texas Tech was playing Arizona tonight. It's BYU and Arizona that play tonight. But if you'll probably drop Texas Tech and Houston, so 4-2 at home, and then find a way to win a road game or 2. So you've got Cincinnati, UCF, TCU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, maybe 2 or 3 games on the road, and you're looking at 18, 19 wins and a first-year head coach. I don't know if you find a way to get into the tournament. Unfortunately, I don't think you have enough opportunity left to prove you to get enough quad 1 wins, basically. Unless you find a way to beat Texas Tech or BYU, and get to 20, 21 wins, then you get in. But if you just get to 20, which is, I believe, what we got to last year, and you're still dropping games against Texas Tech, BYU, UCF on the road, I don't know if you find a way to get in. But there's opportunities there.
Yeah, that's the thing. We got to take advantage of these opportunities as best we can, and not embarrass ourselves. That's the number one thing. The Big 12 is such a hard conference to play in when you're not a top 10 team, and you're facing a gauntlet of a schedule every single week. You're playing 2 or 3 quality teams every week. And if you can take advantage to upset one of them and take care of business against the other teams and win a couple on the road, you could be looking at the tournament. But I agree, it's going to be hard.
You need Huff and Eagle staff to get going at the same time.
It seems like they can't.
Huff was cooking at the beginning of the year, but Eagle staff was struggling a little bit, and then Trayson comes out and starts making his shots, and then all of a sudden Huff goes cold. He's had back-to-back games where he has not been himself. We need both of them to get going at the same time.
If they get going at the same time in whatever game they're playing, it could be a 20-point or more victory for the Mountaineers, because that would be an unstoppable, duo of scorers. Like, if Huff is feeling himself and can't miss, fading away from three, like sometimes he just hits the craziest shots, dude. Like, I don't know how he
misses his open ones and he hits his ridiculous ones.
It's crazy. Those two get going together, this team's very dangerous. So that's where we are on basketball. Just wanted to highlight them very quickly before we move on to some football. I think next up in the order of discussion is our incoming portal class. So, Tyler, this is your area of expertise, so I will let you lead the conversation, and let's talk about who we got coming in.
Big old class for the second year in a row. We've got 33. I just hit my computer. Sorry about that. 33 incoming transfers, I believe, and around 40 some incoming freshmen or JUCO guys. So a lot of new faces once again. I just wanted to go through the portal class and really just the roster and break down who left, who's coming in, and then whether or not we think this year per position group will outperform what last year's position group will. And so we're going to do a little bit of predicting while also doing a little bit of hindsight, how that position group performed in 2025 versus how we think that position group will perform in 2026. So that should be fun. Starting with everybody's favorite position, wins are a quarterback stat, so you got to have a good quarterback under center. Outgoing, you've got Nico, Jalen Henderson, Khalil Wilkins. Nico is the only one of those guys that has not ended up at a school yet, which I'm kind of surprised about.
Yeah.
Henderson ends up at Liberty. Khalil ends up at Marshall. I like both of those landing spots for those guys.
I like Marshall, especially for Khalil.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on Marshall's roster breakdown right now, but if he ends up being the starter, I like that spot for Khalil. Incoming, you have one guy, and that's Michael Hawkins. 6'1", 206, coming from Oklahoma, former four-star athlete. He's got wheels, man. He can run. Prior to the portal opening, my thought process for the quarterback position was bring somebody in that could compete with Scotty for that starting spot, and I think they did exactly that. Michael Hawkins and Scotty Fox Jr., it's going to be one of those two guys. Behind them, you have a lot of guys that are young, Jaron Hewley, John Johnson, Wyatt Brown, all coming in with that freshman class, and then Max Brown ends up sticking around as well. So it's going to be between Hawkins and Scotty. This is probably the easiest one to determine whether or not it's going to be better or worse, because year 2 Scotty is going to be better than year 1 Scotty. And if Michael Hawkins starts over year 2 Scotty, that means he's better than last year's Scotty. So it's kind of hard to get worse here, because you're developing a guy or starting a guy that is better than the guy you're developing.
Yeah, you said it. Hawkins is like, on paper, one of the most perfect fits for Rich Rod's system of running the quarterback. Like you said, he has wheels. I watched his highlight tape from 2024. Dude shows a lot of raw potential, especially throwing on the move. Can be a little erratic sometimes, so I think he'll be able to work that out under Rich Rod again with the system he's going to be playing in. But I'm excited for this quarterback battle. I could see Hawkins getting the job over Scotty, but year two Scotty is also going to be someone to be reckoned with in power conference play. So quarterbacks, obviously, you're right. They get better this year.
Yeah, you said it's Hawkins, little bit of a chaotic arm, which is a little concerning, and that's why I'm saying that Scotty is still very much in the race. I'm not going to say that Hawkins was brought in and he's automatically starter. I still think Scotty has an opportunity. I'm going with Hawkins right now. Either way, that room should be better. And that takes us to the backfield where the crown jewel of the transfer portal class is brought in, and that's Cam Cook from Jacksonville State. He, again, was the only portal running back brought in. You lose Jaheim White, he goes to North Texas. Dior Hubbard is at Wyoming. Ty Edwards, which I don't know if he's getting another year of eligibility, he's in the portal. Tyler Jacklich goes to San Jose State. Clay Ash, Cannon Cancer, still in the portal. And Sincere Bowers ends up at UConn. A lot of out, only one in. But that one in is about as good as you can get. Leading rusher in 2026, nation's leading rusher with, I believe, 1,659 yards, 16 touchdowns. He can also catch the ball. What is interesting is I was expecting one more addition here. They were in touch with Kanye Udoa at one point. He's now at Liberty. There's a lot of inexperienced guys in this room, a lot of potential, but a lot of inexperienced guys. You have Amari Latimer, which I do think is college ready. If you look at his high school tape, if his build right now, like he is ready to play football at the college level, but he's still a freshman. And then you've got Lawrence Autry, Christopher Talley, Sir Paul Cheeks, who won't be back until sometime in July, so he won't be here for spring ball because he's injured. And then Martavius Boswell you bring in from JUCO. So Cam Cook is the only guy that has taken snaps at the D1 level. As good as Cam Cook is, and as good as I think he will be this year for the Mountaineers, that is concerning, especially when you consider how bad the injury bug caught us last year. If Cook goes down, your running backs are freshman and Boswell from the JUCO ranks. So right now, if we're saying better or worse, it's hard to not say better because last year the running back room was really plagued with injuries. Jaheim White goes out. Dior Hubbard and Sincere Bowers were in and out. Clay Ash seemed to be your running back too for the majority of the year. It's hard to see somebody not being better than Clay Ash. I hate for Clay Ash to catch a stray, but that's just the situation at hand. If this group stays healthy and Cam Cook can deliver on what I think he will deliver and Boswell ends up being that number 2 spot until Amari has developed a little bit and gotten used to the P4 ball, I think this group will be better than last year. And another piece to that is the offensive line should be much better. We'll get to the offensive line in a second, but the offensive line should be much better, and that alone should help the running backs.
Yep. I think you said it too. If you take out the injury bug aspect of last year, you can say potentially we don't have as much guys with experience, so I get that argument. But at the same time, we picked up Cam Cook, very quality guy. Obviously led the nation in rushing yards. Now, you look at his level of competition he played, there's an argument to be had, but there's no doubt that he is very experienced and ready for this role as lead back here. I'm excited to see how he does. Again, the O-line is going to get better. We'll get to it. That's going to help all the backs. And, hopefully Rich Rod has had a year to implement a system. We got 70 new guys. It is what it is there. But, Rich Rod knows what he needs to do. Like, he's learning himself, trying to coach better, trying to teach better. So he's going to have a better idea on, how to utilize these guys to their full potential in the system. So I would say running backs can be better.
I do want to say Cook had the highest overall PFF grade last year out of anybody on the team that will be on the team this year. He had an 85.7 PFF grade last year. To put that in perspective to anybody that doesn't understand PFF gradings, 60 is about average, and he graded out 15.7 points ahead of that. So
Yeah.
as long as he's staying healthy, you've got a star in Cam Cook. He's got Power 4 experience. He'll be ready to go come August. That brings us to receiver, which is in kind of a difficult position to grade. Biggest loss is Cam Vaughn. And you can argue however you want whether or not he was technically a loss or not. I understand that there was some controversy or disagreements on whether or not he was bad for the locker room, culture-wise, if he had an attitude or not. But the fact of the matter is he had talent, and you can't win. You need talent to win football games. So you lose Cam Vaughn. On the bright side, you bring in a lot of guys with a lot of experience, excuse me, with a lot of potential. Little experience, but a lot of potential. You bring in Teron Francis from LSU, 4-star receiver out of high school. He has the highest upside. He's 6'1", 207. As I mentioned, highest 4-star recruit out of high school. He runs around a 4.4 40, which is extremely fast. And he's not even the fastest in that wide receiver group, which is crazy. We'll finally have some speed in that wide receiver room. So watch out for Teron Francis. The only thing is he doesn't have any stats to his name. So he did not get to play much at LSU last year. Prince Straken comes in from USC, 6'5", 215, really big body. If you need him to go down the field, catch a ball, he can do that. He's going to be big in the blocking game simply because he's so big. He proved he had a little bit of production at Boise State, got buried in the depth chart at USC, and then suffered an injury in that first game. But that USC wide receiver room was stacked last year, so it was kind of hard. If you were going to make it onto the field as a USC wide receiver, you had to be a really good player. John Nieder comes in from UConn, DJ Epps from Troy. And then you obviously have to mention some of the JUCO guys that come in, Keon Hutchins and Kendrick Triplett. I imagine both of those guys will get significant playing time. Keon Hutchins runs a 4.2 40. I told you Teron Francis was a fast receiver. He runs a 4.4. Keon Hutchins runs a 4.2. Talk about some speed. And then Kendrick Triplett isn't far behind. He runs a 4.3. I imagine Triplett will be your starting slot guy out of the gate. I could be wrong. But the rest of this is up for debate. Whether or not this group is going to be better or worse really depends on, do these guys with the potential end up reaching what their potential is? I mentioned Teron Francis, a lot of potential. Does he get there? DJ Epps, Keon, and John Nieder are two guys that had some production last year at UConn and Troy. Does that translate to the Power 4 level? Prince Straken was picked up at USC for a reason. Can he get onto the field and, be a guy? Jaden Bray, I haven't mentioned him yet. He's still on the team, but he's coming off of back-to-back years where he got injured and missed the entire season. So it is extremely hard to tell whether or not this group will be better or not, simply because you are losing such a talented piece in Cam Vaughn, regardless of the off-the-field issues or even on-the-field issues. We all saw the Texas Tech play. But if this receiver group reaches its talent, I think it'll be better. The surrounding cast, I think, will 100% be better. It's just, will there be a guy here that reaches what Cam Vaughn is able to do?
You're right. In terms of saying, whether they're going to be better or worse, I'm going to put an asterisk beside of it. I agree with you entirely. There is no telling yet. And losing Cam Vaughn obviously hurts. However, just talking about the guys that we got in, a 4.2 40-yard gets an exclamation point in combine results. So, you're looking at raw speed, and you're looking at a guy like Hawkins, who could potentially be the starter, needing to work on his throwing game a little bit. With this system that we're running, where it's very run heavy, quarterback up the middle, around the line, that opens up the throw. And if you have guys in the wideout who can run a 4.2 and a 4.3, he's like, Hawkins just going to be able to place the ball 30 yards upfield, and you're off to the races, because the defense has to honor your ability to run the ball at the quarterback position. So if we can figure out a balance between these guys and throwing the deep ball and running a lot of go routes and running out the middle and getting 7-8 yards a run, we could be dangerous. We have the potential to be very dangerous on offense. And with Cam Cook as well, he's a threat. So if it meshes together, we could be legit on the offensive side.
I want to mention too as well that blocking as a wide receiver is extremely important in this offense. You have to be able to block.
Yes.
You're the guys that are getting downfield, reaching the second levels to block if Cam Cook passes the first level, or Amari or Boswell, whoever it ends up being. We've got some big guys. 6'1", 207, Teron Francis. 6'5", 215, Prince Draken. 6'2", 205, John Nieder. 6'1", 185, DJ Epps. Like, you've got some big bodies coming in to be able to block downfield. I didn't mention anybody else that left outside of Cam Vaughn, because I think Cam Vaughn was by far the biggest loss. But you do lose Rodney Gallagher as well. Christian Hamilton ends up at Marshall. Rodney Gallagher ends up at Arizona, who will be in Morgantown this year. So that'll be fun to have him back in Morgantown, this time as a foe. Everybody else outside of Oren Singleton, who ends up at Tulsa, has not landed at a school yet, if that tells you anything about who we're losing. Like,
right.
Outside of Cam Vaughn and maybe Hamilton and Rodney, because both of them are former 4-stars, we're not losing a whole lot of talent per se. Like, if these guys were really highly touted guys at this point in their careers, they would already be signed with schools.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
The large majority should be better. It's just a matter of, do we have a wide receiver one that can end up being that Cam Vaughn threat? That brings us to tight ends and fullback, because we haven't mentioned Mr. Caden Luke, hard people doing hard things, beer truck loading. If that doesn't get you excited for 2026, I don't know what does.
We got a fullback again. We got a fullback.
That's Project 2005 in full effect. Tight end is interesting because, and this is going to be the first position where I think we end up being worse than what we were last year. You bring in Josh Sapp from Clemson, who has caught a couple balls, not very many, but he has caught a couple. Ryan Ward is obviously still here. I think it's his starting position to lose, but Rod uses tight ends in the run game a lot, so they'll all be out there at times. And then you bring in Cam Ball from Mississippi State. I think Ryan Ward will take a step. He should take a step, and he'll definitely be your tight end out there most of the time. Josh Sapp and Cam Ball, it comes down to, will they be better than Grayson Barnes and Jacob Barrick? I don't think they do. I really liked what we had last year with Grayson Barnes and Jacob Barrick. Jacob Barrick did a really good job blocking, and then Grayson Barnes was there as a receiving threat when we needed him to. I don't know if Sapp and Cam Ball come in and end up being what Grayson Barnes and Jacob Barrick were. They're both redshirt seniors. This is the one position where I think you take a step back on the offense, and then you've got behind those three a lot of freshmen. Cade Bush, a freshman. Carter Zuliani, redshirt freshman. Sam Hamilton, freshman. And Xavier Anderson, freshman. So it's really those top three guys. I think you take a slight step back, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. All the guys that we're bringing in, have the potential under a coach like Rich Rod. So working with a guy like that, we'll see. And, me personally, I think of like tight ends are always a product of the run game. They're mostly out there to block. They do catch passes a lot, but whenever they get open for passes, it's most likely a result of the run game. So will our run game get better? I think so. Will our offensive line get better? Again, we'll get to it, but I think so. So the potential's there. However, I see your point. Grayson Barnes and Barrick were legit. If we get worse, it is what it is. I
don't think it'll be drastic. I don't think it'll be drastic.
Yeah. It's not going to be drastic.
Just a slight step back.
It may not even be noticeable for the casual fan.
Yeah. I think everybody learned his name last year during the Pitt game. Grayson Barnes catching the touchdown to force overtime, but he did a lot. He was an unsung hero last year in my eyes. He did a lot
Yeah.
for this team that I think went unnoticed. And maybe one of these guys steps up and be that same thing. Does Ryan Ward take a big step? Right, he's a redshirt sophomore, so he's still a young guy that has the chance to take a step. So maybe he does. And Josh Sapp and Cam Ball are both veteran guys that could help out the young boys in the room. But I do think you take a step back. But you, like I said, you got to mention Caden Luke. He's listed as a fullback. I don't know how many times he's going to be toting the rock, but he's going to get that he's going to be that H-back type player. He's had some reps at tight end. He is 5'11", 250. He loves to hit people. If you have not seen his tape, go watch it. He lays the boom when he's leading the way for the running back, whoever's got the ball. He did have 4 carries last year for 20 yards at Arizona, so he can carry the ball if we need him to. But watch him out there. He's going to be blocking. He'll be clearing the way for Cam Cook, Amari Latimer, and Boswell. He's going to be fun to watch. He's blue-collar guy. I mean, he showed up to his official visit in cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. So what speaks West Virginia more than that?
Texas.
Okay, yeah, well, you know what? Caden Luke, I appreciate your service, brother. We're Beer Truck 2.0.
I'm excited for him. I really am.
That brings us to the biggest overhaul of the season, which is the offensive line. Listen, there's no way we get worse, right? This was like the secondary last year.
Yeah, we said that about the secondary, and it still wasn't pretty. So
that's true. I mean, Rich Rod, there's that clip of him last year. I can't remember exactly what game it was, but of Rich Rod going like this, and he's just talking about not being able to get 6 inches behind your offensive line, and he's not letting it happen again. He went out and picked up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from the portal for offensive line. And then he also has, Kevin Brown is there from the recruiting class. Jonas Maya is a JUCO guy. Camden Goforth, you got to mention him as well. This room should absolutely be better. It's going to be impossible to name who the 5 starters are going to be. I think you can pencil in Wes King. He has not allowed a snap in 1,000. He has not allowed a sack in 1,750 snaps.
Man.
So that's something for you. And, you have Karsten Cassidy from UConn, Devin Vass from fellow Big 12 school Kansas State. You bring in Amari Grayson and Cameron Griffin, both from Jacksonville State. So they're familiar with the system that is being run. And the biggest pickup for the offensive line was bringing in Trickett. You've got 8 to 10 guys that I think are very playable. And now you have the best offensive line coach in the country, up for debate, but one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. You can almost guarantee that this offensive line will be much, much better than last year. It's in much better position. Like I said, there's 8 to 10 guys that you could argue are going to be game ready in August to start.
Yep, I'm with you there. Obviously, it's hard to gauge exactly how much better we'll be, but you can't sit here and say that we'll be worse. There's no way that we will be. A lot of the guys that you mentioned are day one impact players. Like they just are. Kevin Brown, Camden Goforth. Those guys are going to be day one impact players. So I'm excited to see where this O-line goes. I was going to game 1 in the season against Robert Morris, and I was walking to my seat with my dad, and I'm like, of all the positions to watch this game, I'm excited to watch this offensive line. And obviously it wasn't up to par last year or how it should have been, but that's just like one of the most interesting position groups to watch because from a casual fan perspective, you don't know the impact that an offensive line can have on a football game. They're super important. And that's why I love watching them. And I'm very happy that we did a lot of work in the portal and in recruiting to get the guys that we got. So I'm really looking forward to next year.
If you don't have a good offensive line, there's not much you can do on offense. And I think we saw that last year. there was not a guy necessarily outside of Nick Cray and Landon Livingston that I was really worried about losing. I will say Donovan Haslam ended up at Tennessee, so obviously there was something with Donovan Haslam. But other than that, there's nobody on the roster that left that ends up at a school better or equal to West Virginia. And we got a lot of guys that were getting more Power 4 offers. Like, we beat out Texas to get Wes King. Devin Vass is coming from another Big 12 school. Amari Grayson, I'm pretty sure, was getting other Power 4 offers. So it's not like we were going out and getting guys that are not being highly recruited. Like, these are some guys that we probably had to pay a lot of money for, especially the West Kings of the world. But it's going to be worth it. If you finally see this offense with a good offensive line and either Scotty Fox or Hawkins has some time back there, it is going to make a huge difference. That brings us to the defensive side. The only other player I'm going to mention on offense, it's not really a position, is Matt Sieg. I don't know where he'll end up. I didn't mention him, but I don't know if he's going to get much attention on the offensive side. He's kind of a little gadget type player that can line up in the backfield, can line up in the slot. You'll probably see him on the offensive side, whatever that may be, at some point this year. So he's another name to watch. But offensive line, I think we can both agree, will be better.
Yep.
I know I put Matt Sieg in there with the offensive line, which doesn't really make sense, but here we are. Defensive line, switching over to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive edge, I think, will be much better. The interior is about like the receiver group. I'm putting an asterisk beside of it because I really have no idea. Edge players that you pick up from the portal specifically, you bring in, Ezekiel Durham Campbell from Coastal Carolina, Toby Hastrip from Oregon. Good Lord, go watch Toby Hastrip play in high school and just look at his build. I mean, he's unbelievably built. Like, he is a freak athlete, extreme explosiveness, unbelievable. The type of athlete that Toby Hastrip could end up being. He transfers in from Oregon. You bring in Harper Holloman, who was a CUSA Player of the Year, something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the all-conference player is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. He comes in from Western Kentucky. You bring in Davey DeFogo from Bowling Green, and then that is it for the edge players.
Live notice: WVU class is canceled for Tuesday. So
let's go, baby.
No classes.
Let's go. Those are the big four that you bring in from the portal: Zeke Campbell, Harper Holloman, Toby Hastrip, and David DeFogo. I think immediately off the bat that will be just those four will end up being better than last year. Last year was I'm drawing a blank. Who was the guy we brought in from UTSA last year that was probably the biggest? Jamori Robinson. I couldn't think of his name. Oh my goodness.
This isn't a normal Tyler thing to be blanking on. That's my job. That's my job. That ain't your job.
Jamori Robinson was probably one of the biggest portal busts in West Virginia history.
Man.
Off the bat, I think we're better because it was him, Braden Siders, a couple other guys. But just those four transfers should be better. And that doesn't
not only that, they're gonna be able to play the first game of the season. Like, I don't think we're having any
all of those guys should be day one, like immediate impact. And that doesn't talk about the guys that you brought in from JUCO or you had on the roster already. Wilnerson Telemack is still on the roster. Darius Wiley, you bring in from JUCO. Brandon Caesar still on the roster. Jeremiah Johnson, Noah Tischendorf, and Carter Kessler. Darius Wiley, Wilnerson Telemack, Brandon Caesar, and Jeremiah Johnson. I expect all of those to be some rotational pieces. Wilnerson Telemack and Taylor Brown, who we'll talk about in a second, I think you're going to see big leaps from them in year two. Edge, I'm very confident will be better because I don't think we had very good edge play last year. The middle of the defensive line is where it's questionable. You bring in one guy from the portal that is a quote-unquote inside defensive lineman, and that is Will LeBlanc from I can't even remember the name of the school. FCS, or actually, I don't even know if it was an FCS school. It might have been D3. Texas Perryman Basin, I think, was the name of the school. But you bring in Will LeBlanc. Outside of that, you are relying on guys that were here or really young guys or JUCO additions. Your JUCO additions are KJ Henson and Jalen Thomas. Those two specifically, the staff seems to be extremely confident in. Both of them had multiple Power 4 offers, including an offer from Tennessee, Jalen Thomas. So you beat out Tennessee for a guy like Jalen Thomas. He's a big guy, 6'2", 313. I imagine he'll get the starting spot. That's who I think will get the starting spot at nose guard. The couple guys returning, Corey McIntyre, Nate Gabriel. A lot of guys weren't kept, and a lot of guys were not kept because of Rich Rod's decision. And Nate Gabriel and Corey McIntyre were. So there has to be something there that Rich Rod is seeing. Cam Mallory is a freshman. Yendor Mack, freshman. I said Taylor Brown. As I mentioned, Taylor Brown, I think he takes a step up. He's 6'3", 290. There's just a lot of inexperience, and two guys that are experienced haven't shown enough for me to be confident on the interior of this defensive line. Like, if you're relying on Corey McIntyre and Nate Gabriel to get the majority of the snaps on defensive line on the interior, that scares me a little bit because they have not really taken that step that, even Neil Brown talked about when they were here under Neil Brown.
Yeah.
So you're really relying on a bunch of guys that are young and upcoming, or Henson and Thomas from the JUCO to be solid players. It could end up being better. Right now, I'm saying it ends up being worse because I think Hammond Russell did a solid job last year at playing the inside. You lose Eddie V, Asani Redwood. Those were guys that were solid players last year.
There are going to be some losses, yeah.
I think interior of the defensive line is where you take a step back, but the edge of the defensive line, I think you'll take a step forward.
Yep, I'm with you there. The one thing I can say about, the interior is, we do have a few returning guys, Corey McIntyre. Culture, and it's going to be the establishment of the culture. Rich Rod's second year. Again, I can say this for the whole roster, really. He's going to be able to implement his culture better than he was last year. He's not going to have to worry about, the in with the out, in with the new, old, out with the old. So from that perspective, I can see us getting better. But right now I'm with you. Overall, we may be on the same level or a little bit worse, but I am excited for the edge rushers. It's going to be better than Jamori was for us. So that's sort of where I'm standing with the whole D-line situation.
There's not a lot of size there either. Like, we only have two interior defensive linemen that reach that 300-pound threshold, and that's Jalen Thomas and Will LeBlanc. So not a ton of size on the inside. I actually don't remember if the three guys – no. So, I mean, you only had the – Hammond Russell was your only nose guard that was over 300-pound last year. So, I mean, you're about the same in terms of overall size-wise, but I would still like to see them pick up one more guy for the inside of this defensive line. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Moving on to linebacker. This one's kind of tough to say because you lose Reed Carrico and Chase Wilson. You also lose John Lewis, Caden Beiser, and Ben Bogle. But the biggest losses are by far Reed Carrico and Chase Wilson.
Yeah.
Chase Wilson, I think, is going to be a big loss. However, you bring in a guy that is extremely similar in Tyler Stolsky from FAU. He wears a cowboy collar while he's playing football. So if that tells you anything, I mean, blue-collar guy.
Hard hitter.
Loves to hit people. He wore a club on one of his hands for like half the season at FAU last year. He screams hard edge.
He's going to be a perfect culture installation. So,
yeah, that's about as good of a culture add as you can get. So watch out for Tyler Stolsky. Other additions, you bring in Isaiah Patterson from UNLV. A lot of upside. Had some struggles last year. Got better as the year went on. He's 6'4", 235, so he does add some length, and he's a redshirt sophomore, so he has multiple years of eligibility left. You bring in Malachi Hood from Illinois. Was very on and off last year. He wasn't a starter. He did see the field. quite a bit, but it was very good at times and very bad at times. So need some stability out of Malachi Hood because he's a guy that I think will end up with a starting spot if Ben Cutter doesn't end up getting that spot. But you do keep Ben Cutter, you keep Ashton Woods, you keep Cam Torber, you bring in Trey McLaughlin and Cameron Dwyer in the recruiting class, and Antoine Sharp, and then you also add Jason Hall from Villanova. He is one of the most recent additions. So I'm actually going to say better. This is a group I think it has more length, more athleticism, and that was one of the biggest problems last year. Tyler Stolsky is a sure tackler. He is going to be a big addition. One of the biggest issues last year was tackling. I imagine this group will be better. You're going to see some development from guys like Ashton Woods and Cam Torber. I like this group of linebackers. I would still like one more addition here as well because there's only 2 or 3 guys that have starting experience, and that's Tyler Stolsky, Ben Cutter when he did get some starting time, and that is about it. So a little bit of inexperience, like just about everywhere else. You can see a theme. He's building for the future and now. But I think this group ends up being better, if not around the same.
Yep. I'm with you. I think right now I'm staying moderate because, like you said, Carrico and Wilson, huge losses. But bringing in the culture installations that we need, the hard hitters, the hard edgers, that's what it is. You're bringing in those guys. They have the potential to pick up the torch from where those guys left it last year, carry it to be better. The inexperience is a question mark right now. I think 4 games into next season, we're playing in Charlotte against Virginia. I'd say around that time of the season, we will sort of know where the defense especially stands. So I'm with you. I'm staying moderate right now. I'm not going to necessarily say they're going to be better. I'm sort of in the middle. I'm going to say around the same, but they definitely have a lot of potential to be way better. So that's where I'm at.
You got more lengthy and you got more athletic, which is what you set out to do. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
Safety, or not safety, but secondary.
Let's
And
group
I'll
secondary, yeah.
I'll go cornerback and then to safety, but we'll kind of group them together. A lot of turnover. Obviously you lose Michael Coates, which is going to be the biggest loss because he played, he had a couple times last year where he got burnt or took a bad penalty, but he still played well. And then Jordan Scruggs and Jason Chambers, I thought both played fairly well as last year as well. Behind those 3, there was not a ton of guys that I was very impressed with last year in the secondary. Dwayne Galloway, he is in the portal. He is gone. You had Ty Crutcher, Devontae Golden Nelson. He is gone. Keyshawn Robinson does remain on the team. Jaden Bell, I believe, is gone, if I'm not mistaken. And then that was about it for the quarterbacks last year. You bring in Jameer Latimer from Wisconsin. He follows his brother Amari. Jair Rollison from Kent State. He has very tight coverage. Jair Rollison has very, very solid coverage. I know he was only competing against MAC schools last year, but if he can make the jump from being able to play at G5 schools to Power 4 schools, Jair Rollison, I think, has a chance to be a really solid add in this cornerback room. Shams, I'm not even going to try the last name until I figure out more about Shams. I apologize to Shams, but
he's a dog. He's here for a reason.
He comes over from Georgia State. He is 6'4" and 200 pounds as a DB. So he's going to be fun to watch. Chamaris Bomar is still here. He's a freshman, redshirted last year. He should take a step. The staff seems to be pretty high on him. You bring in Damoon Allen from JUCO. Rayshawn Reynolds as well. Andrew Powdrell comes over from UNLV with Isaiah Patterson. Keyshawn Robinson, as I mentioned, is still here. Vincent Smith, as a freshman, he was borderline 4-star. I don't know if you'll see a ton of him this year, but a guy to watch to be in the depths. Malik Hawkins comes with his brother Michael Hawkins from Oklahoma. He was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He had offers from Texas. And those are the guys in the cornerback room that I think you'll see. The biggest question mark here is, will one of these guys be a lockdown corner. Can Jameer Latimer take a step like I'm going to use the comparison. I don't think he'll end up being this good because I don't want to compare him to a consensus All-American and NFL player. But Jameer Latimer and Beanie Bishop had very, very similar career paths. Started at the G5, worked their way up to a Big Ten West school. Beanie went to Minnesota, Jameer Latimer to Wisconsin, and then they transfer over for their final year to West Virginia. Can Jameer Latimer take that step that Beanie did? Not necessarily to the extent. I don't know if I expect him to end up being a UDFA in the NFL and being a solid player for the Steelers until he wasn't.
I don't know what happened there, man. As a Steelers fan, that still makes me mad. I don't know why the heck we let Beanie Bishop go.
I don't know if he ends up becoming a consensus All-American, but can he take a step? I already mentioned Jair Rawlinson. Andrew Paldrell is a senior as well. However, I read somewhere that Andrew Paldrell is moving to safety, and then Malik Hawkins is listed as a DB right now. So I think you'll see him play like the Nick Taylor role, where he's kind of he's out there at different times. In terms of safety, the biggest addition was Kamari Wilson. If you want somebody that hits hard like a freaking maniac, go watch Kamari Wilson at Memphis. He's a 4-star recruit out of high school. He's had trips to Florida, Arizona State, and most recently Memphis, where he racked up 40-some tackles, solo tackles. I think he had 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 pass deflections. He does it all. He does it at a high level. He was PFF graded above a 70. He's undoubtedly going to be a starter. And then you have a couple guys that need some time to develop. Jacob Bradford comes over from LSU. He was a 4-star athlete out of high school as well. Didn't see a ton of time last year. And then Matt Sieg, obviously out of high school, probably the crown jewel of the recruiting class this year for Rich Rod. So as a whole, it is tough to say because I don't know if we talked about the departures, but you obviously lose Fred Perry, Kokora Tarnu, Jordan Walker, Justin Harrington, Darren
No
Carter.
more targeting penalties out of the secondary, please.
as many penalties as he drew, he was a really good player.
He was a dog, yeah.
I am going to I said that I think the safety group will be slightly better and that the cornerback room will be near identical. And that's because there were times last year where this secondary really struggled despite how good Michael Coates was as an individual player and despite the flashes that Chambers and Scruggs showed. So I think it'll be very similar to what you saw last year, which I know doesn't necessarily get fans excited. But there's some young guys in here that you're looking to develop for the future more so than right now. If you look at Chamaris Bomar, if you look at Vincent Smith, Malik Hawkins, those are all guys that are going to play crucial roles in year 3 and onward. Matt Sieg, Jacob Bradford, same goes for them. Right now, I'll just say it'll be about the same if we're grouping the secondary together as a whole.
Yeah, you've said most of what I wanted to say about this secondary unit. Really all that I want to say about the secondary unit. It's the same about the linebacker room. They have the potential to be better. A lot of young talent, a lot of new talent that just has potential. And I like you saying that it's probably going to look closer to what we had last year because I feel like that's a solid expectation to have with guys that maybe will have the chance here to get more experience on the field. We'll see how it is. Can these guys flourish individually? Sure. But, we're a unit. And the funny thing is we have a hell of a defensive coordinator in Zach Alley. And I feel like he is going to be the one who, along with Rich Rod, I was talking about implementing the culture for the second year. Zach Alley is going to do a better job of implementing his scheme for the second year. And obviously he got the guys he wanted to get, Sieg, again, being the crown jewel. So I'm optimistic about the secondary. I'm not going to say it's going to be so much better. I'm going to say it probably will just be a tad better once we get, 2-3 games into the season. It probably will be a tad better. But I like where you're coming from with
I will say you added length, which was something you needed to do.
Yes.
You added a lot of length in the secondary, especially in the safety group. As I mentioned, Shams is 6'4". You've got a couple 6'3" guys in the secondary. So the length is better. It's just a matter of will some of the guys that have a lot of potential live up to said potential. Jacob Bradford, Matt Sieg, so on and so forth. That is finished with the defense. All right, that's the end of the defense. We can't leave without talking about the best part of the team, and that's the special teams. And it's going to hit a little home talking about it because the Rams just lost yesterday because of it. So,
in your
specialists,
field.
you bring it. I'll tell you what, if there was one group that was an absolute win that you brought in the transfer portal, it was the offensive line and it was the specialists. You bring in the number one punter in the portal, Brian Hansen from Colorado State, and then you bring in Peter Nataro from Alabama, redshirt freshman, and Jack Cassidy, who is 6'6". Would like to add from Western Kentucky, I believe. Is that correct? Let me do a little fact check. I believe he's from Western Kentucky. Jack Cassidy, yes, from Western Kentucky. Jack Cassidy, I cannot remember exactly, but he had a pretty solid percentage, and he was consistently kicking balls out of the back of the end zone, which has been such a pet peeve of mine for the past couple
we
of
need
years.
that so bad. I know.
Being able to kick it out of the end zone. So Bryson Hansen will likely be your punter, or not likely. He will 100% be your punter last year. Rest in peace, Ollie Straw. I'm going to miss you. But Bryson Hansen is a good guy to follow him up. And then I imagine Jack Cassidy will be your kicker next year, and then Peter Nataro will kind of be moved in following Jack Cassidy in the years after. But those three guys were a home run for picking up specialists in the portal. Peter Nataro from Alabama, Jack Cassidy, one of the best kickers in the portal, and then Brian Hansen, the best punter in the portal. So knocked it out of the park. As far as kick returner, punt returner, it's kind of hard to say who it'll be right now. I know DJ Epps has experience doing that. I believe Martavius Boswell has experience doing that. The running back from the JUCO. It's kind of impossible to predict who will be doing that right now, but we are going to miss Preston Fox because Preston Fox was really solid at doing that. And then your long snapper, McGuire Moss. West Virginia is long snapper university, as everybody knows. So I think the specialists will be better. I didn't think the kicking was very good last year. Outside, the only downgrade I think will be our kick returner, whoever our kick returner ends up being, because Preston Fox did a really solid job doing that.
Yep.
And then I don't know if Bryson Hansen ends up being what Ollie Straw was, but he absolutely can be. Like if Bryson Hansen does here what he did at Colorado State, he will be just as good, if not better, than Oliver Straw. So I like the specialists.
Yep, me too.
That's the team. That's every position group. Majority of them were better. I think the only groups we said definitively with a asterisk of potentially being better, but right now we have labeled as worst, was the inside defensive line, and then the tight ends, which, as we said, could very much end up being better, even though we think they won't. And then the wide receiver, we don't know if anybody will end up being a true wide receiver one like Cam Vaughn was last year, but it has the potential. So before we move on to the schedule, all I have to say is Rich Rod found a way to go 4-8 last year with a roster full of guys that were late pickups in the portal, just scrambling to get a roster put together. This year, he goes out and puts together a recruiting class that is the best in West Virginia history, and a transfer portal class of 33 guys that On3 has ranked in the top 20, I believe. A lot better position than you were last year. Even with the couple guys that you lost that you would have liked to keep, Curtis Jones Jr., Cam Vaughn, so on and so forth, this roster is in so much better of a position to succeed in 2026. Even if it's not for a Big 12 title, this is not a Big 12 title ready roster, in my opinion. But it is miles better than what you had last year.
You are going to see a better football team on the field in 2026. You are.
You're not going to see us getting blown out by UCF. You're not going to see us get shut out by Texas Tech in our own stadium.
Not going to see us lose to Ohio.
Yeah, you're going to see a much better product. And speaking of Ohio, that brings us to our schedule, because we open the season with another G5 friend, and that is the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina, the Myrtle Beach Chickens. I'll be honest, I like this schedule. The only things I do not like about it are that you end the season with a really tough stretch and you start the season with 8 games in a row without a bye.
Yeah,
Outside of that, this sets up so much better than what you did last year.
I agree.
You have Coastal Carolina at home, UT Martin at home, Virginia on neutral site, Oklahoma State at home. You do not technically have a true road game until October. So you have Coastal UT Martin is a homestand, Virginia neutral, Oklahoma State home, Iowa State on the road, Arizona Cincinnati homestand, TCU on the road, bye week, Texas Tech on the road, Kansas Houston homestand, and then Utah on the road. So you have 3 different homestands, including 4 games in a row that are not true road games. You obviously travel to Charlotte to play Virginia, but I think you set up to start fiery in 2026 if everything starts out clicking. And I want to mention that a lot of these guys that we've been talking about over the past hour that we brought in from whether it be the recruiting class or the transfer portal, a lot of them will be here for spring ball, which is absolutely huge. I cannot stress enough how big that is. A lot of the guys we brought in last year were not here for spring ball. Some of them were late pickups that weren't even here for half of fall camp. And then we had some NCAA issues. So like guys like Ty Edwards, Jeff Weimer, and Jamoy Robinson weren't even here until about 3 games into the season. Having these guys here for spring camp will be huge, and that sets us up even more so for a hot start in 2026. The problem is if you get off to a hot start in 2026, you're looking at a tough stretch towards the end of the season. Right now, I think 7-5 is my line. I think over under would be about 6.5. Can you get to that 8-win mark? Will you end up below that 6.5 mark and maybe only get to 6 wins? My floor is 4-8. My floor last year was 3-9, so I'm going up one. I know that doesn't seem like a big
I
jump,
like it.
but it's the Big 12. Anything can happen. My ceiling is going to be 10-2, and I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, and that's a huge gap between 4-8 and 10-2. But realistically, you could win all of these games outside of Texas Tech and Utah. I think those are 2 games that you're going to really, really struggle to win unless there's some injury issues with Texas Tech and Utah.
I don't
And
know what it is. We can't win in Lubbock. Like it
yeah,
seems like we just can't win in Lubbock.
you never win in Lubbock. Utah's a tough place to play. I know they're losing Kyle Whittingham, but their defensive coordinator is taking over the head coaching job. That should be a very seamless.
And they're going to
transition.
have it figured out by late November. So
yeah, so I'm leaning 7-5. The only thing is, I think you start 5-1 and you end 2-4. So
that's gonna be rough.
If you end the season 2-4, how much does that affect the perception of a really hot start, right? I don't believe in carrying momentum from one year to another. I think it was Matt Howell that I was talking to earlier. It might have been you that there's teams that were participating in the playoff that can't carry momentum from the end of the season all the way to the start of the playoffs because it's such a big gap. Well, we go from the end of the season 8-year gap or 8-month gap to the start of the next season. So even if you do finish 2-4, I don't think that momentum really matters, but it would suck for the fan base if you get off to such a hot start. You're packing Milan Pushkar in November just to lose multiple games in a row. I'm not going to go game by game right now, but that is what I'm looking at. I think 7-5, you start out hot, slow down a little bit towards the end of the year. Ceiling sits at about 4 to 5 wins, or excuse me, floor sits at about 4 to 5 wins. Ceiling sits at about 9 to 10 wins.
Yeah. My prediction, I'm gonna bet that the opening wins line for like FanDuel DraftKings will probably be 5.5. If I had to guess, I think they're gonna put a 5.5 on it.
What was it last year? Was it 4.5?
I think last year
or
was
5.5?
5.5. I think last year was 5.5. So, I like you saying the floor is 4-8 because it is one game higher than I think we unanimously agreed on last year. You look at Coastal, UT Martin, those games, the fan base knows what those games mean. Virginia on a neutral field, but we're gonna pack that place out. Bank of America Stadium's gonna have a lot of West Virginia fans in it, so
Strong alumni base in Charlotte.
very strong alumni base. And plus, the people in Southern West Virginia, this is their dream because it takes them longer to get to Morgantown than it does to get to Charlotte. So,
Coos, I know Coos talked about that. He said he'll probably
Coos,
be at the
right.
Virginia game because it's closer to Charlotte for him than it is Morgantown. So shout out Coos.
Shout out Coos. Yeah, so we're gonna have a strong fan showing at that game. Looking at conference, the bye week, in my opinion, between TCU and Texas Tech is very well placed because you have the road games back to back, and having a weekend there is going to be good for rest. But like you said, it's a hard stretch of games at the end of the year, and momentum could play a factor. Remains to be seen because we'll know by Oklahoma State, Iowa State time how good our team really is. We couldn't answer that question last year though because we were just so inconsistent. We lose to Ohio and we don't know what the heck's going on. Everything's up in the air about the team. We were expected to know by the third game of the year how good we were, and we just didn't. So
and we had about 4 or 5 quarterbacks play by the third game.
yeah. We were switching quarterbacks like it was going out of style. So we should know by Oklahoma State, Iowa State time how good we are. And you got a tough stretch of games, in TCU, in Texas Tech, Kansas and Houston, hosting Houston. That's going to be an interesting one. Utah, I don't see very. I'm optimistic for that one. Arizona is at home. That's big because Arizona is probably in most people's way too early top 25. But we'll do a different episode on that for the Coal Country edition of the way too early top 25. But I got Arizona in the mix there, so having them at home is huge. Having Cincinnati at home is huge. They were a good team last year, so, and obviously having Houston at home. So I think your floor is 4-8. Ceiling might be like 9-3.
I said 10-2. I that seems a little generous, but as I said, there's only 2 games on the schedule that I think aren't winnable.
That's fair.
And you have to consider the fact that last year, at the beginning of the season, we said Arizona State was not winnable, and Arizona State ended up coming down to the wire. So, do I think we go 10-2? Absolutely not. As much better as I think the roster is this year than last year, I don't think it's good enough to compete for the Big 12 just yet. There's going to be some wear and tear. Injuries happen. There's going to be a couple key guys go down, whether we like it or not. It's just the name of the game. Fatigue will play in because, like I said, you mentioned the bye week being a good spot. I do agree. It's in between 2 away games, but it's 8 games into the season. You have to play 8 games in a row before you get a bye week. And while that bye week does seem like it's in a good spot, you will be away from Morgantown for about a month. You play in Cincinnati on October 17th. You do not go back into Milan Puskar Stadium until November 14th, excuse me. So you're away from MPS for about a month. So no, I don't think we go 10-2. That's unrealistic. And as Ian said last year, we overestimate our true potential because we're homers. We see through gold and blue lenses. We need to try to temper our expectations, but it's still possible, right? There's always a scenario where if everything goes right and you beat every team that is beatable or 50-50, so to speak, and you only lose to the teams that you probably are going to lose to, then you could find a way there.
Yep. We'll see, dude. I am excited for this schedule. You're looking at it. We have 7 home games and a neutral site game. We have 4 true road games. So this plays into our favor incredibly. And I pray on all things holy that our team does not underperform in the most critical positions. We have a stable quarterback. We don't get hurt in the running back room. We can't have all this stuff happen this year with this schedule. We can't.
We didn't even mention the fact that we play 4 teams with a new head coach. Coastal Carolina, I believe. I'm pretty sure
Oklahoma
Coastal Carolina.
State.
Iowa State and Utah. Now, like I said, Utah I think will be very seamless, and I think people are underestimating Oklahoma State simply because they're in a West Virginia type spot. They had to replace a lot of guys, but Eric Morris comes over from from Texas, and they bring a lot of guys over from North Texas.
Shout out Neil Brown.
I think they brought about 15 guys over from North Texas, including Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins. I think they brought in 3 of their top 5 wide receivers. Their quarterbacks coach is now Oklahoma State's offense coordinator. So Hawkins, Mestamaker, their receivers, they're going to be familiar with the offense. I think it'll be fairly seamless from North Texas over to Oklahoma State, and I think Oklahoma State takes a big jump from 1-11 last year.
Yeah, I mean 3-9 was surprising the year before for them. They ain't going 1-11 again, or was it 2-10? I can't remember. Anyway,
no, they went 3-9 2 years ago and 1-11 last year. Their only win was
11.
FCS team. Who did they play?
Tulsa.
Oh, they're not FCS.
Oh, FCS. Sorry. Yeah, I know they lost to Tulsa last year.
Yeah, they did lose to Tulsa. I remember that now. Let's see.
So,
I want to because I want to say. Let's see if I'm fact checking before I say it. I am correct. Their only win last year was a team scheduled for us this year, and it's UT Martin.
and it was close, right? Like it was actually a close game.
It was 27-7. I heard somewhere. I don't know the guy's name. Let me look this up. UT Martin head coach. I believe he's been here for about 20 years. Jason Simpson.
Man. Steelers vibes being tenured for 20 years. They hire Mike McCarthy. What the heck, man? Anyway.
Yeah, he has been there since 2006. So, I don't expect us to lose to an FCS team. We were terrible last year, and we still put it on Robert Morris. So, not to disrespect UT Martin, but it is interesting that their head coach has been there for 20 years. That's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Culture. People underrate culture. So, anyway, with this schedule, we can't have the injury bug again.
Yeah,
can't have it happen.
Don't let that happen to you.
So that's our thoughts on the schedule. We broke down the roster, talked a little bit about basketball. So I think we're pretty well caught up on what we've missed in the past month without filming, which it feels really good to be back. So glad you could join me. We'll get the Mats back on next time, hopefully. So should be a good time in the future. Hopefully we can be more consistent with putting out some episodes as well.
And I don't think players can still be signed. So there's still news to be broken through the portal. There's obviously spring ball coming up. The spring game will happen. I can't remember the exact date it was last year. The date is.
We should go again. We went last year. We should go again. And we should do a live reaction afterwards.
We'll definitely try to go. But there's definitely more news to be broken as the off season ensues.
Yep, it's gonna be exciting. Hopefully it should be exciting. All right, that's going to do it for us from this episode of the Cold Country Podcast. Before you guys sign off, please make sure like the video, really helps us out in the algorithm. Subscribe to our channel. Not sure if we're at 150 yet. Again, it's been a while since we posted, but please help us get there. It would mean the absolute world to us. Follow the Instagram, the X, and don't forget this episode will be posted on Spotify too if you're on the go. Listen to us there. So once again, that is going to do it from me and from Tyler. We will see you guys on the next episode.
Goodbye, America.